Elise Giuliano. I am a professor of political science here at Harriman Institute and director of the Graduate Studies program. And I've had the privilege of being the faculty mentor to Mariam this year. So we're really lucky to have her with us for the year from Georgia. And she's going to give you a very interesting presentation today, after which we will have a question and answer period. So I would like to also mention that we are hybrid. So we are both in person and on Zoom. And after Mariam gives her presentation, we will have a question and answer period. And I'll first take questions from the audience that's in person, and then I'll turn to some questions on from our audience who's participating virtually. Okay, and with that, I would like to give you a little bit of background on Mariam's professional career. As I mentioned, she is a participant this year in the Human Rights Advocacy Program at the Institute of Human Rights at Columbia University. In her regular professional life, she is the project coordinator at the Georgian Center for Psychosocial and Medical Rehabilitation of Torture Victims, GCRT, and has been working there since 2017. She's been advocating for the rights of individuals who are suffering the after effects of trauma, including the victims of the 2008 Russo-Georgian War, which was the first interstate armed conflict on European soil in the 21st century. She has been promoting and protecting their human rights internationally of victims of the war in front of the International Criminal Court. She's managed a number of projects at the GCRT, supporting social empowerment and rehabilitation of women who are survivors of gender-based violence and domestic violence, and has been working to combat inequality and discrimination. She holds a BA in forensic psychology from John Jay College of Criminal Justice in Midtown, New York City. And with that, I would like to welcome Mariam to our presentation today.
Thank you so much, and thank you for taking your time and coming today, and also those of you joining through Zoom. I'm very glad to be here, and at the same time feel a great responsibility to talk about today's topic. As Elise said, I'm here through ISHR program. This is a program for human rights advocates all around the world. This is an amazing program aiming at skills building and knowledge increase. So advocates here for this period of time can gain all the skills and then go back to their organizations and strengthen their organizations. So it's this is a program, yeah, just a name. So I'm gonna start my presentation with the ongoing war in Ukraine, and I want to just reflect on the variety of traumatic events that Ukrainian people are facing, are exposed to, in order to better understand what their psychological needs are, and for us, the international community, to provide better support, mental and professional. And later, my colleague from Kiev will join us for a short time. I'm very happy for that. And she's gonna just bring us the perspective from the inside of Ukraine. And yeah. So I need this slide because I'm starting with the painter. This painting is from Bogusz Cipik, the Ukrainian painter from 1917. And as we see here, the woman is symbolizing Ukraine, and she's defending her toddler from double-headed eagle, which represents Russia, of course. And she says here, I would never take something that doesn't belong to me, and I would never give to someone what is mine. So I think this is, and this painting was made in when the Red Army invaded Ukraine, and just amazing thing that history repeats itself, and Russia has invaded Ukraine. They are committing mass atrocities there, and we, international society, are again facing the challenge to be trapped in this triangle of victim, aggressor, bystander. And talking about this triangle, I want to bring quotes from Norwegian psychiatrist Leo Eitinger, who just perfectly describes this cruel conflict of interest between victim and bystander. And I could never say better than him. War and victims are something the community wants to forget, and the veil of oblivion is drawn over everything painful and unpleasant. We find the two sides face to face. On one side, the victims who perhaps wish to forget but cannot. And on the other side, all those with strong, often unconscious motives who very intensely both wish to forget and they succeed in doing so. The weakest one remains the losing party in this silent and unequal dialogue. And also, there's another psychiatrist, Judith Harriman, who just explains how when victims suffer atrocities, the ordinary response of the mind is just to forget atrocities. However, because it's too painful to talk about that. However, atrocities don't want to be banished and denied, and the only prerequisite towards social healing, social reconstruction and healing is talking about them. And if they are not talked about, they are surfacing through symptoms. So we are expecting here thousands of refugees, and I think I'm gonna be lucky enough to meet some of them, because this is just amazing, great, resilient nation, and just to have this in mind and to be mindful about this. And yeah, it is impossible to just watch calmly what's going on. We see a lot of mass human rights violations, and Russia is distinctly using war weapons such as rape, humiliation, and forced disappearances, mass deportations, and different cities. I mean, there is one big stressor, Russia, and everybody's affected by Russia. However, the different cities are affected different ways, and different groups of people are experiencing this stress on different levels. So I just want to talk about that. So for example, we have refugees and IDPs, and they are in very high stress. Refugees are, yes, they survived, and they are happy to be survived, to have survived, but probably they are in a mourning phase. They have left their loved ones, houses, and probably they feel guilty. Why I left, why I survived, etc. So it's a big stressor on refugees and IDPs. And then there's victims who are under siege, and Mariupol is still under siege, and they're suffering just unimaginable sufferings on top of being bombarded. There are cities who are permanently under bombardments, and there is a Bucha, and there is Krematorsk, where simply there is no safe place. And so there are different stages, and also there are different stages of survival. And everybody just passes this road in their unique way. And I want to talk about trauma as a singular and simultaneously as a collective experience. Trauma, a single incident, loss of a loved one, or a damage, or something that the person experienced, is unique for each and every one. But then there is the suffering that is collective and is experienced by groups of people. So over there, the experience is in number of ways, by communities, societies, for example, Mariupol is this collective trauma, and Bucha is collective trauma, Kherson is collective trauma. So it's very wise to be just mindful about that, that some events we are experiencing our unique way, and then there is a generalized collective trauma. And when talking about collective trauma, I just want to touch a little bit what is a war trauma. War trauma, and Judith Harriman, again, I'm citing her. She has this amazing book, if you haven't read, Trauma and Recovery, which Columbia Library has it. And so she explains what's war trauma, complex trauma very well, experience that is outside one's normal experience. It is so overwhelming that it causes intensive fear for life. So complex trauma is this series of long-term traumatic events prolonged in a longer period of time, like domestic violence, war, torture in prison settings. And then we have intergenerational trauma, which is, yes, when patterns of trauma is passed from generation to generation. And for example, Holocaust, yeah, and Stalinist totalitarian regime, etc. So, for example, my great grandfather was exiled during Stalinist regime, and then when he returned, he developed PTSD. So he was absent for 10 years. Then he came, so his son was already, when he left, when he was exiled, he was 10, then 10 years after he was 18. So he basically missed all this period with raising his son. So then my grandfather suffered repressed anger, disconnection, and then etc. So it comes down to generations. And dimensions of damage of trauma can be all this intraphysics, which is thought process changes that occurs after trauma. It can lead to personality changes also. Families, oftentimes persons cannot be with their families anymore, or if they are, they feel so estranged. Relationships get damaged. Physical, I mean, all these stress hormones and overactive amygdala causes headaches, a lot of other physical symptoms. And so touching intergenerational trauma and complex trauma, I cannot not touch a little bit the history of Ukraine, because really what we see, the nation now, the identity of Ukrainians is evolved to this history, and this history even makes this trauma that we're experiencing even more profound. So yeah, in the beginning of 20th century, Ukraine suffered these great injuries after forcibly integrating to the Soviet Union. And then ethnic cleansing of Kazakhs started. So I'm not gonna go in detail into that. And then Holodomor started, which was enacted by Stalin's regime. And as you know, what was happening of it. I think the Holodomor, only the Holodomor, is the sole reason why Ukrainians today are so resilient and just are determined that don't wanna, because I have met here a couple of people who are saying, oh, just why not Ukraine just gives up the eastern part? I mean, no, because of Holodomor, they know what's gonna happen afterwards. And this is a Holodomor was a sole motive to wipe out Ukrainian peasants, and the Ukrainians will never gonna experience the same. At least they don't want to. And it's a funny thing, just 5 days ago, Czech Chamber of Deputies recognized Holodomor as a genocide. And then,
yeah. You just mentioned that it's famine for people who don't know.
Yeah, because I was sure, yeah, so Holodomor, I'm sorry, it means like death by starvation. So what Stalin did, he collected farms, individual farms. He made collectivization and took all the food and just exported in the West. So basically what happened, up to 4 million peasants, it was a peasant cleansing of peasants, died. And once peasants, these people figured out that there was no food and wanted to flee, borders were closed. So for a year, this massive famine happened and they just starved to death. While Ukraine is, as you know, is known for food and for soil, and this is a disaster that the food was there. However, it was exported because of Stalin's industrialization plans. And in 91, Soviet Union collapses, and I think this is when Ukraine nation is already formation of nation's identity is completed. And I think Ukraine is determined that they want to be independent. They don't want anything from Russia. Very important is Budapest Memorandum, because this is when I'm looking at Julie and I know she knows everything. So then I'm like, the Budapest Memorandum is the memorandum that Russia, United States, and Great Britain, I think, signed. On this memorandum, Ukraine gave up its nuclear arsenal and in return received sovereignty of the territory. And as we see, it didn't happen. So this is why it's so important. And then Orange Revolution happened, conflict against corruption and pro-Russia government. And then Maidan happened because pro-Russia government just cut off talks with European Union. So 100 demonstrators died in Maidan. And afterwards, of course, Ukraine used this opportunity and annexed Crimea. And yeah, that's what we see today. Now, already I was here in New York when Putin declared independence of Lugansk and Donetsk and just launched full-scale air and land invasion of Ukraine. And just briefly, what I want to say is that why we are here today, and this is my perspective, and then we can discuss it. We are here because the concessions and compromises that West was giving all this time, because West didn't do anything when Battle of Grozny happened and the city was just leveled to the ground. Nothing was done when my country was attacked, and Russia is occupying my country's 20% till now, and it's just not 20%. They have installed barbed wire, so these barbed wires every night they're just creeping. So people are sleeping in occupied Georgian territories, and they wake up in a Russian territory. So, and nobody's doing anything about that. And then Crimea, and etc., etc. And now, of course, Ukraine is on much bigger scale because Putin practiced in Syria, and he's, I think, much stronger. And so this is on far larger scale. I just wanted to show this, the similarity. I especially don't want to put inside any horrible photos because we see this in news and it's enough. But Bucha, what happened in 2022, and Georgia, this is Abkhazia's war in Gagra, scene is the same. And scene is the same in Mariupol and Grozny. And it just said that West is just realizing what we have known for so many years, that compromises, pacifying aggressor is not gonna do anything. And this is Georgia, and this is what Russia is occupying us. Georgian war was a disaster for us. We have up to 27 IDPs for the justice to be served, and simply there is no progress. And plus the barbed wires. And I just want to talk a little bit about justice here, and justice as an integral part of healing, because when we work with victims of grave human rights violations, and when a person has been severely wronged, they need justice. I mean, no matter how much therapy you're going to provide in order to treat flashbacks, insomnia, etc., if there's no healing, there's healing is not complete. So it's like, it's not holistic. So it's usually when we represent, we GCFT represent 826 victims in front of ICC court, and now ICC court issued arrest warrants towards Ossetians, which is fully not justice for us because we know who the menace is, but it's partially achieving justice. And when we accompany our clients to the court settings to testify, or I mean, key missing point in their healing process is justice. So I just want to emphasize, because ICC has opened the investigation in terms of Ukraine, and hopefully evidence will be collected, and maybe this time justice will be served. So I just wanted to show you, this is a classical longitudinal phases of disaster, just to orient ourselves where we are, and just to see the road that we have to go. So every disaster has this phase. It can be natural disaster, war. So right now we are in the event phase. And as we see, it's a long process. I mean, once the event phase is complete, then comes damage, and then comes changing function of the society. And the intervention methods is also very complicated, because relief is targeting changes in society. However, it's not recovery, so it just halts and slows down the pain and suffering. And then recovery is targeting the damage. So what has damaged, only after completely damaged phase is complete, then we can think of improving the function of the society. So this is a huge process which has not even started. So I just want to show what we have ahead of us and what we can do. I mean, since Ukraine war, and I keep saying this to my cohort colleagues who are sitting behind all the time, that this is a very personal issue for me and for us Georgians, and I think for everybody who is the country of former Soviet Union. And it has revived in us 2008 war, Stalinist regime. And I meet a lot of people here with whom I'm not agreeing on a lot of things, because I don't want to say it's different, but I think the world is really divided in two. Those of us who really understand and know what Russian military forces are capable of doing and what Russia is capable of doing, and then there are others who simply don't. And I think now, at least, if anything good came out of this, is that now everybody knows what Russia is. And maybe it's too late, but at least no. So what I want to say, so unity I see here when I meet people, is that everybody wants to do something morally, financially, professionally. So everybody can do something, and there is no small bit. I mean, everything small adds up to big, and there is no therapy. I mean, it doesn't have to be therapy to be therapeutic. So I think, like, acknowledging where we are, advocating, distributing information, solidarity, listening, and when refugees will arrive here, attending to their pain, just listening, because trauma has this thing that it affects memory. So once a traumatized person is telling the story, it takes a courage to tell a story. And once they tell a story, oftentimes it's not linear, not coherent. So sometimes the credibility of the story can get undermined. So once they notice that, they shut down. And as I said in the beginning, telling in words and not in symptoms is very important. Just again, to be mindful of that. And there's also coordination in Ukraine, and my colleague will just join and say her inside story of Ukraine. Our colleagues, psychologists and mental health professionals are just on crisis level, working on crisis level, evacuation, medicine distribution, and this is in the. I mean, we see this resilience, and what I want to say just to foster this resilience and acknowledge. And I would just want to end with, Viktor Frank's quotes. As you see, I love quotes. So, forces beyond your control can take away everything you possess except one thing: your freedom to choose how you will respond to the situation. And Ukrainians have chosen determination, and just let's keep standing next to them. So thank you. Julia can join us, but I don't know how to do it technically.
Sorry, what's the name of the person who will be joining?
In
Carly, can
Yeah, what is the name of the person who will be joining?
Kievska.
Okay.
does she have a?
Yeah,
She has a link. She has a link to this.
Yeah.
I'm making her a panelist now so she can join us.
Okay, Julia, if you're there, you can unmute. Great.
Yes.
Welcome.
Yes. Hello.
Welcome.
Hello. I'm so sorry for I can't switch more light because we still have here in Kiev some blackout restrictions. So, but anyway, I'm here.
See you though. We can see you clearly.
Super great. I'm so proud to be here, and I appreciate you for invitation a lot. So yes, I am from Ukraine. I am from Kiev, and for many years I work at the Ukrainian Psychiatric Association as a program coordinator, project coordinator. I'm not a psychiatrist, I'm a sociologist on my background. But anyway, this is our organization is an all Ukrainian NGO, and we focus our work on modernization and reforming of Ukrainian mental health system for many years, and also providing people with mental disabilities social and legal support, and their relatives as well. Now here is my office and also my bedroom. The war in Ukraine has resulted in unimaginable human suffering. Hundreds of thousands of Ukrainians have fled their homes and are trying to find safety place either in the country or abroad. Others are sheltering in homes, bomb shelters or cellars, while their cities are attacked by Russian artillery, bombs and missiles. As a result of Russian invasion, millions of people have been placed under heavy stress and experience psychological trauma. One of the most vulnerable groups of the Ukrainian population is people with mental health disabilities. Today, many of them have no access to the appropriate professional help, including access to sufficient medication and rehabilitation services. Moreover, many of the patients in the mental health hospitals which are located in the occupied territories or so-called gray zones must live in bomb shelters for every single minute, and they are suffering from hunger and thirst. Several institutions have been bombed, some completely destroyed. Some faced other challenges like living without electricity, gas, and a sufficient amount of food and medication. Like well known to me, psychiatric hospital in Chernihiv, where 280 patients were residing in the cellar together with the staff for about a month. Now the city is liberated by Ukrainian troops, and they step by step they back to normal life. I have to say that I'm so proud of the Ukrainian mental health professional community. I know many of them personally, and I'm deeply impressed of their professional and human behavior. They stay with their patients. They didn't flee. They didn't leave people they're responsible for. A lot of them, both directors, high-level administration people and medical staff, moved to the mental health hospitals to be with their people 20 hours a day and 7 days a week, to care about them in the best way and to provide them with the best professional support they can do under these horrible circumstances. With our long-term partner, and of course we are trying as a professional NGO, we are trying to connect all of our contacts and to get recent information, accurate information, but sometimes it's really very difficult because, as I said, some of these institutions are under occupation and just can't connect with us. To help our colleagues and their patients with our long-term partners, also NGO, the Federation Global Initiative on Psychiatry, we are developing a program to bring aid to mental health institutions. The program is run by a young and really brave Ukrainian psychiatrist, Tatiana Dergach, who in 8 years ago, she was forced to flee from Donetsk. And now she is second-time refugee in Lviv. FGIP was successful in raising money for buying a minivan and also a medication and everyday supplies. And Tatiana is delivering the humanitarian aid to the institutions in urgent need. We do understand that after our victory, Ukrainian psychologists and psychiatrists will urgently need to get extensive training in trauma therapy and crisis counseling to help millions of people of Ukraine. And in the future, we expect a growing number of individuals with shock reactions, PTSD, post-trauma stress disorder, depression, acute stress, and other psychiatric disorders, including me, because, you know, I live, my home, it's in Obolony, district of Kyiv, and my neighborhood is just 20 or 25 minutes far from, by car, far from Bucha. And when I'm thinking that I was just stay at home and was experience regular fear of being bombed or hearing these sounds of artillery. People of Bucha were raped, tortured, and killed. So I literally can't breathe when I'm thinking about this innocent people who these cities, small brave cities, just took a beat that was intended to Kyiv, and we realized it. So thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you, Julia. Thank you.
you.
So insightful information. Thank you very much.
Okay, so let me repeat again to the people joining us virtually that you can put a question in the Q&A, write your question in the Q&A. And I will also first like to ask if anyone in the room has questions. Yulia, are you also willing to answer questions if people have questions for you?
Sure.
Okay, thank you. So much admiration for what you're doing there and trying to help people while experiencing trauma yourself. It's really just unbelievable and so, so admirable. Okay, comments, questions? Yes, and please introduce yourself.
Well, I'm Linda Mose, I'm an auditor at Columbia. Since rape is a common war crime, do most of the Ukrainian women bring those pregnancies to term, or do they abort? And if the children abort, then who cares for them? What is the status of those children?
You know, maybe Julia will answer this question because I'm not sure. I know that after multiple rapes, there were a number of women who got pregnant, and I don't know what the eventually came out of that. So maybe Julia, you know anything about that? Did you hear the question?
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear question.
I'm writing down. Or?
I'm typing it. So I'll just say the question is, what happens to the mothers, the women who are raped? Do they bring the pregnancy to term, or do they abort, and so on?
Actually, now the investigations are in process,
but we don't know. Yeah,
sure. Just 1 week ago, the cities were liberated, so it's too early to speak about. And many of victims just don't want to apply for legal and other aid because
why don't they want they don't want to apply for assistance and aid?
I mean for legal authorities.
Yeah, they don't want to.
They don't want to speak about this experience.
Right. Yeah, they don't want to maybe be double traumatized.
Many human rights organizations are involved in these investigations, and also, of course, our office of the General Prosecutor Office. They publish their reports almost every day. Not reports, but a sort of information. So they're just in its first step of first stage of gathering, of collecting evidences.
Thank you. I have a question. I kind of wanted to ask about intergenerational transmission of trauma. And maybe it's too soon to say intergenerational from the war in Georgia, which was in 2008, but do people talk about it, or do you see a lot of repression if people have experienced trauma as a result of war, or is it something they will try to process within the family, or is it something that a lot of people try to push down, much like many people after World War II tried to push down or ignore, live the rest of their life by ignoring and not dealing with what they experienced?
Well, actually, because maybe the war, because of borders I mentioned, and it's not over, and we are under constant threat that what they're gonna do. The trauma is very much alive in families and everywhere. So even little children know that. Like when Abkhazia happened, I was 10. So I have experience, but I was little. So, but it's talked about, and it's just open wound for us because what happened? I mean, they just okay, Abkhazia is done, but like this is not complete. So it's just ongoing. And even now it's peak, it's night over there. So some families might be just like wake up in Russian territory. So yeah, it's pretty much, and I'm sure it's gonna go through the generations, and this pattern will not diminish anytime soon.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Adrian.
My name is Adrian Mugat. I'm a student at the Master's at the Harriman Institute. And I had a question about in Georgia in the post-war period. Is it difficult to receive financial support for a center that provides a service as opposed to working on just a project? How is it on the long term when you have an NGO that probably requires some support from donors, but works on a service that doesn't really, that has to continue going on, and that is not like defined in time?
Yeah, it's a good question. In Georgia, European Union is very active in terms of assisting victims of torture and those who suffered war traumas and other violations. And projects are, projects are like maximum 3-year project, right? But somehow, and I can't say it's very effective, because once the project is done, then there's always a trouble to get another funding, because usually the local staff is never trained enough to just continue the work that the donor gave you the finances. And as we see, UN right now just lost its power. I think UN just have to close down because like what they're doing. I mean, this thing is happening, and just the structure for me, UN. And and UN is also funding us, but it's just on the scale of what's going on now, like all these donations and all these little projects are nothing. And I mean, children are dying, like, and what is UNICEF doing? I mean, what is UN doing? It's very frustrating. But mostly, other than governments, donors are putting more money in the rehabilitation of victims of violation. Yeah, I hope I answered your question.
Julie?
Just a kind of question about, it strikes me that justice in these circumstances, like real justice, is impossible to achieve, right? And so the Georgia example from 2008, you have all these IDPs going to the courts without, their voices are heard, maybe there's a finding in their favor, but real justice is not available because of the jurisdiction and the sovereignty of Russia and the presence there of many of the war criminals, et cetera. Mm-hmm. And it strikes me the same thing as, of course, in Ukraine, right? There's a geopolitical reality that keeps justice from being served. So I'm curious to know, as someone who's worked with IDPs and who has kind of worked through some of these trauma moments, what are some alternatives for real justice, right? Where are the roles, or what are the avenues for this mitigated justice, which is the best perhaps that we can offer? What are some things that, in your experience, as someone who's worked with these communities, that has given some modicum of being able to address the trauma outside of the thing that we can't provide, which is, Putin and a body bag, perhaps?
So, I mean, when I said that when ICC, International Criminal Court, issued the arrest warrant for the 3 Ossetians, this arrest warrant is for a specific crime of forcibly detaining 107 persons in a extremely isolated and subjecting them to torture. This is just one incident. This and I'm here, and I have not personally met the victims, but through my organization, I know that they feel partially achieving something. Like, even though all the testimonies say that Russia is responsible for everything, like issuing arrests on Ossetians is just washing hands. It's like, that's what we Georgians, and I have talked with you about that many times. And for example, the partial achievement is also a trust fund for victims. It's a separate organ of International Criminal Court, recognized these violations and is starting now rehabilitation programs because of this, in order to somehow give these victims back whatever they have lost. It's going to be livelihood programs, psychological, medical. So we fought a lot for the years since 2016 for these achievements, for trust funds to have started initiating its assistance mandate. So little by little, but you're right. I mean, justice fully without bringing perpetrators to justice will be never achieved. So that means longer therapies, non-stop therapies, and etc. So yeah.
So just to piggyback on that, so
Yeah.
the rehabilitation program that you're talking about, that's just been created. I imagine, right, that a much larger one will be needed for Ukraine. So who's funding it? How do you build that capacity? What are the pressure points to get it to be constructed? Just because anticipating what will become necessary after this conflict. I mean, Georgia, it's a 6-day war, right? This is, who knows how long this will be. What are some of the things that, what are some pressure points that people should bring to the attention of stakeholders? Like, who should they be pushing? Is it the ICC? Is it what are the
I think big international organizations are very resourceful in that. However, their money goes, like ICRC, for example, is pretty involved, and a lot of international organizations like Amnesty International is engaged. We had a meeting with them just a couple of weeks ago, and they are fully engaged. Their crisis center, their documented human rights violation, eventually is going to lead to something. Human Rights Lab at the Teachers College, they are going to build capacity of the Polish mental health professionals. And IRCT, there's organization, International Rehabilitation of Victims of Torture, they have this emergency fund. So little by little, with Georgia, again, UN, EU, and all these other small fundings we had, and even that was not enough. So I'm sure with Ukraine, and I can't give you any more answer of this. A lot of emergency fundings will be available, and I think everybody, like when I said distributing information, talking about this problem, just not forgetting. I think this all will lead to something, and every humanitarian help, every box of something is already something. So we can all think about that also, and. GCRT, we have a list of NGOs working in Ukraine because 3 or 4 years ago, and that's how we met me and Julia. We funded organizations in Dnipro, Kharkov, and Nikopol, in organizations that started to provide services to victims of torture, and the services were not available before. And we know a lot of organizations who right now are focusing on helping those who suffered. So there are many ways to linking to these organizations, and I'm here, and you have my email, and I can always connect you to, in order if anybody wants to help or do something. Yeah. So other than international organizations, we can all help also. That's what I want to stress.
Did I see a hand back there? Yeah. Please introduce yourself.
I am Nia from Colombia, participant as well of the Human Rights Advocates Program. Alika, thank you very much for your presentation. I'm curious about this idea of resilience. I think that it is important just to keep in mind that humans tend to be resilient in times of adversity. And at least from my experience in Colombia, well, we have like a really complicated conflict as well. And I will say that this concept of resilience was a very bad, very bad recognized for different actors in the conflict. So I would like to know from your perspective, maybe in Georgia or right now in Ukraine, how this idea of being resilient should be considered like something positive or negative in terms of you should do that for someone else. And I feel that very different approaches when we are talking about resilience, or how we should be resilient, or how the resilience should be perceived by others. So I'm just curious about this.
Thank you for asking. I think resilience is this wonderful thing, and no way it's negative. And with Ukraine, that's what they have. I mean, they're so courageous and resilient, and that's why whole West is standing on their feet. Because if we have not seen that, then again nobody would care. So I think Ukrainian people, and I admire with their president, I admire them so much because they just woke us up. I mean, I was awake because of my situation, but I see here that people are more aware. And I was saying before that all the history of Ukraine itself just made this nation so resilient, and there's just not going back. And Julia, I'm so proud that I know you and all Ukrainians, because I think, yeah, it's amazing. I don't know any other nation that is that resilience, and that's maybe my problem, but yeah.
Julia, maybe you would like to say something about the concept of resilience, since we have heard it invoked from the very beginning of the conflict with reference to Ukrainians. Do you have any thoughts about that?
Sorry, I think I have some problems with computer sound, so
What could you say about the resilience of Ukraine?
I admire it as well, really, and I was expecting something like that, of course, as part of Ukrainian society, but it's something unlimited, and I'm so impressed, and not, of course, our soldiers are on the first place, of course, but ordinary people who are helping the animals, helping to save the animals, to save absolutely people they don't know. They see them first life in their life, and they're trying to help them to save their lives. And I was staying in Kiev the whole time. I didn't flee, so I was seeing on my own eyes in numerous amount of small I don't know, everyday doings. It was not a sort of heroism, of course, but it was I don't know how to explain. It was kindness, bravery, solidarity, and sometimes I'm thinking that Ukrainians are here to keep the balance between kindness and pure evil, because the war, our enemy. They are sometimes, not sometimes, actually, every time we think they're just beasts, and as an opposite, Ukrainians demonstrate a lot of kindness, solidarity, and desire to help other people and animals and to everyone. So maybe it's our mission to keep this balance, and hope we will survive.
To kind of model humanity in the midst of so many bleak and inhumane occurrences during the war.
Maybe it sounds too ambitious, but anyway.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Other questions or thoughts?
No questions in the chat, right?
No. I wanted to ask about proximity to a particular trauma, because Yulia mentioned that she lives near Bucha. So I thought, when you said that, I thought, well, that makes it even worse, right? Because you feel like you're there, or you feel like it could have been you, even more than somebody who's a little bit further away. And I've just been thinking about this a lot with Ukraine, because, you know, how people in Kyiv think about Mariupol, it's the same country, but it seems so far away, maybe, but it's, I don't know, is this something that people who work on trauma during war study or think about, the actual physical proximity and how people can kind of either sort of distance themselves as a psychological defense mechanism from something that's happening, even though it's happening to their countrymen, or it's happening nearby, but it's not happening specifically in your neighborhood. It's something that gives you a little bit of distance. I'm just wondering about that concept.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, Gori was attacked in 2008. Elise is just an hour away. So we felt it very scared, and we felt that we would be attacked. So we were all prepared, but it's just very close. And I think Julia, I think that's why when I say that here, I mean, West is like a little bit further from Ukraine, so that's why maybe it's not touching some of the people like that, because it's too far away. But I don't know. Yeah, I can't. Maybe Julia will say, yeah. I mean, I even had no idea it was so close to Bucha, even myself. Yeah, this is really something.
You know, maybe I can speak about my feelings, my personal feelings. So I will be short.
Yeah, because we have to end it too. I'm sorry, I need the classroom, so I'll just, yeah.
When I read in my Facebook timelines that someone was killed in Mariupol or Bucha, Irpin, or any other Ukrainian cities, I feel that I'm killing as well. So it's my personal feelings. I don't know if everyone feels like me, but I can talk about me. When they kill Ukrainian Ukrainian, I don't know personally. Never mind. I feel that they kill me as well, torture me, rape me, whatever.
Thank you for that. Yeah.
Thank you.
And I think that's like one thing that the atrocity that are happening in as well, right? That it is so painful. I mean, it doesn't matter the distance and proximity and anything. It just feels you. It's just a human thing, yeah. And you relate to that. So.
Well, yeah, I mean, maybe there's so many, I've been hearing from colleagues that they've been traveling around America and they're finding flags and expressions of support for Ukraine in very rural areas and in areas where they wouldn't have expected there to be so much awareness. And that's something new for America, I think, which is not very internationally oriented outside of the big cities. And it's just one little moment of support for you over there in Ukraine, Yulia, while you experience all of this. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
I know it's really late for you.
Thank you, Julie.
And thanks to everyone for coming. I'm sorry we didn't get to the last question in the Q&A, but we need to vacate this classroom quickly. There was a question about the role of religion. Yeah, so in helping people cope, the role of religion is playing in helping people cope and make sense of their painful reality. That's a big question.
Yeah. But I agree in some aspect because Georgia is very religious country.
Yeah.
So it's,
and Ukraine is as well.
Yeah.
Okay, well, thanks to everyone for coming, and thank you so much.